There was once a boy named Samir who grew up in a small village where most people lived simple lives, working hard in the fields, barely earning enough to feed their families. Samir's family was among them. His father tilled the land, his mother helped with household chores, and he had 3 younger siblings who looked up to him. Life was a constant struggle, and poverty seemed like a permanent shadow over their home. Samir often wondered why some people lived in grand houses, wore fine clothes, and traveled to faraway places, while his own family barely had enough to eat. He blamed fate and often said, "Some people are just born lucky. Others, like us, are destined to remain poor." One day, while walking through the village, Samir saw a stranger arriving in a shiny car. The man was well-dressed, confident, and smiling warmly as he greeted the villagers. Samir learned that the man, Mr. Arif, was once from their very own village, but had moved to the city years ago. There, he built a business from nothing and had now returned to help the community. Curious, Samir followed him and finally gathered the courage to ask, "Sir, how did you escape this life of poverty? Were you just lucky?" Mr. Arif chuckled softly and replied, "Luck has little to do with it, my boy. It was all about changing my mindset. I refused to accept that I was destined to be poor. The moment I changed how I thought, my life began to change." Samir frowned. "But how can just thinking differently make someone rich?" Mr. Arif placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your mindset shapes your actions, and your actions shape your future. If you believe poverty is your destiny, you will never try to rise above it. But if you believe you can change your life, you'll start working towards opportunities you never noticed before." That night, Samir lay awake on his rough mat, repeating those words. Change your mindset or stay poor forever. Something stirred inside him. For the first time, he questioned the beliefs that chained him. The next morning, he made a decision. Instead of complaining about what he lacked, he would focus on what he could learn. He borrowed books from the village school, even though reading was hard for him at first. He began helping a shopkeeper in the evenings, not for money, but to learn how business worked. While his friends laughed at him for wasting time, Samir quietly absorbed lessons about trade, saving, and customer service. Months passed and his mindset continued to shift. He realized poverty wasn't just about empty pockets, it was about an empty vision. If one had no dream or courage to act, then poverty became permanent. One day, Samir noticed that villagers traveled long distances to buy simple farming tools and basic goods. An idea struck him. What if he opened a small stall in the village itself? He had no money, but his new mindset pushed him to act instead of giving up. He convinced the shopkeeper he worked for to lend him some goods on credit, promising to repay within a month. The shopkeeper, impressed by his sincerity, agreed. Samir's little stall became a success. Villagers were grateful they didn't need to walk miles for small items. With the small profit he made, Samir expanded his stall week by week. He didn't spend his earnings on unnecessary things but reinvested them, remembering Mr. Arif's words. Over time, Samir's reputation grew. He treated customers with respect, kept fair prices, and saved every coin he could. Years passed, and the boy once mocked for dreaming big became one of the most trusted young businessmen in the village. His family no longer went to bed hungry. He sent his siblings to school, determined to give them a future he never had. One evening, as he sat outside his now flourishing shop, he saw a group of boys complaining about how unfair life was. They reminded him of himself years ago. Samir smiled and called them over. "Do you know why you remain poor?" he asked. One boy answered bitterly, "Because fate wants it that way." Samir shook his head. "No, because you choose to think that way. Poverty is not just outside, it is inside your mind. The moment you decide to believe in possibilities, everything begins to change. Change your mindset, or you will stay poor forever." The boys looked at him with wide eyes, realizing his words carried weight. After all, here was a boy from their own village who had transformed his life. Years later, Samir expanded his business into nearby towns. He built schools, sponsored young students, and gave jobs to many villagers. He never forgot the lesson Mr. Arif had given him, the power of mindset. Samir's life proved that wealth is not only measured in money, but also in growth, courage, and the ability to change. Poverty is not permanent unless you let your thinking make it so. And thus, the boy who once believed he was destined to be poor became the man who showed others that with the right mindset, no destiny is fixed. The truth is simple. If you believe you cannot, you never will. But if you believe you can and take action, you open doors to opportunities that were always there, waiting for you to see them. Change your mindset, or stay poor forever.